John Perkins never sought revenge. But if anyone had the right to, it was him. In 1970, he was a civil rights activist in Mississippi, leading voter registration drives and peaceful protests. The work was dangerous. The Ku Klux Klan was active, and police brutality was common. One night after leading a march in a segregated town, Perkins and a group of activists were ambushed by law enforcement, and they were thrown into jail. And then the beating started. Perkins was kicked and punched, hit with billy clubs. One officer jammed a fork up his nose. Another beat him so severely that he lost consciousness in his own blood. For hours, they tortured him, trying to break him. And in that moment, as he drifted between life and death, something terrifying happened. He began to hate, not just the officers, but all white people. He said, if I had an atomic grenade, I would have pulled the pin. Grace wasn't on his mind. Survival was. After the beating, Perkins barely made it out alive. He needed multiple surgeries. The trauma stayed in his body for years. And the anger, that stayed too. He had every reason to let bitterness take over. Every reason to believe that some people don't deserve grace. But then years later, one of those police officers showed up at his church, and Perkins recognized him immediately. And everything in him wanted to turn him away. Because grace is uncomfortable. Grace asks us to love people that we don't want to love, even those that have hurt us. Grace forces us to confront our own hatred. And yet, Perkins forgave him. Not just with words, they actually became friends. The same man who had beaten him became not just his brother in Christ, but his friend. And Perkins, instead of using his pain for revenge, he used it to transform communities. He founded Christian reconciliation programs across the country, bringing together black and white churches to heal what history and decisions by white people had caused. He refused to let grace stop at words. He built a movement where love became action. Because grace isn't just about feeling different. Grace changes the way we live. Paul writes, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. And then he says, we are Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. Which means grace isn't just something we receive. Grace is something we give. It's not just to people we already like. It's not just to people who make it easy to give it, but to people who have hurt us, the people we don't understand, the people that we would rather write off. Because if we are Christ's ambassadors, then we already carry grace everywhere we go, even into places that feel impossible, even into people we don't think deserve it, even to enemies. John Perkins had reasons to hate, but grace took him somewhere else. So where's grace taking you? Who have you refused to forgive? Who have you avoided because of past hurt? Who do you assume will never change? Today, pray for someone you struggle to love and ask God, how can I be an ambassador of reconciliation? And then take one small step toward it. Because grace isn't just about what we receive. It's about what we give away.